that day. And it was like, I went out and I thought John would be going out door knocking with us. He said, "Oh, I would love to, but I've got a meeting down in Biloxi with Walt Walford. I got to go, baby. I'm so sorry I can't be here." We went out and froze our butts off. You talk about motivation to get into a house. Somebody would open up their door and that warm air would hit me in the face. There was no way they were to keep me out of their house. That was great motivation.
Funny. That's too funny. I do want you, once we get everything started this morning, I do want you to talk a little bit about your door knocking and how you're doing that, because I think it's just the coolest thing. I've bragged to a lot of people about that. But this morning, I want to welcome everybody to Sonrisers this morning. I'm home for the first time in July. I've had an incredible month. I cannot believe that I was able to take the entire month of July off. Now, I do admit I probably worked about 4 or 5 days because I had self-storage stuff to do, and I did come in the office just a couple of days. But wow, what a way to rejuvenate. It was just incredible. My husband and I are still friends. We were stuck in a little camper together, and it was actually almost like a marriage counseling session too, because when you're this far from somebody for 30 days, you're kind of forced to work it out and learn how to get along. And it was really, really wonderful. I did lose the transmission twice. We finally were able to pick that up. My husband's actually back in Nashville today picking that up. But I have to share with y'all a story this morning that happened. As you know, I'm a chicken lady, and I had 20 chickens when I left July 1st, and now I'm down to 11. Oh. And I'm thinking, how in the world is this happening? I'm not finding them, I'm not finding heads or bodies or anything laying around. And I found the culprit this morning as I was getting in the car. A huge, giant chicken hawk is flying around, the back area of my house. So, my son isn't here you're not allowed to shoot at him, but we don't tell anybody that we do that. So it doesn't count. But he isn't here because he's in one of our self-storage facilities working. So I just got in the car and I chased it around the field, driving from tree to tree. So you missed a great story or a vision of watching me drive through the pasture from tree to tree, hollering out the window, "Shoo bird, shoo bird." So I can't let my chickens out today or I won't have any left. But if you've never seen a chicken hawk do what they're supposed to do, they're big birds to begin with, and they will fly down and pick up a chicken and fly off with the entire chicken in their talons. And it's amazing to watch them do it. It makes me mad, but it's amazing to watch, to watch, the wild kingdom right there in your backyard. God made animals just amazing. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting. And Tom Latimer is out this morning. I believe Don Harris is going to do our devotion. Is that right, Don?
I'm up.
Was it a late night for you, my friend?
No, I've got a little bit of frog in my throat, and I've got very little bandwidth, so I'm just going with the voice and not the picture. It's not that I'm afraid to show myself. Wendy, you're telling your story, and the song, the TV show Green Acres just pops into my mind.
That's right. New York is where I'd rather be.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. You were saying Green Acres, and I was thinking Foghorn Leghorn, the Warner Brothers cartoon, because they had a chicken hawk there, and that was great.
That's right.
That's right, for sure. Okay, let's take a brief look at scripture this morning. And, I always like to go to a passage that deals something in finance, in the area of finances. Tom covers all of life for us, and I'm I'm not as broad as Tom. So I go back to the very familiar passages that we've looked at before. But, it's always applicable to our life. And so I start today with Luke 12, verse 15. And Jesus said to them, take care, be on your guard against all covetousness, for one's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. We don't think about covetousness too much, but it's one of the 10 commandments. We are told, thou shalt not covet. And so that to me is a challenge this morning. Donna and I were sitting in a restaurant last night, and I looked outside, and there's a Bentley Rolls Royce parked in the parking lot, and next door is a real estate office. And so I'm just wondering, I wonder if that's that agent's car. Most of you know I'm a real estate agent, but I don't drive a Bentley. Mine's a 10-year-old, 150,000 mile Lexus. So, but I thought about it, how nice that would be. And then the verse, it goes on to say, life does not consist in the abundance of your possessions. And yet that's what we work all the time for, is to accumulate possessions, potentially. And so, money is not evil, and nor is money good. Money is, and possessions, when I say possessions, I'm just saying wealth, money, what you have. And they're neither inherently good or evil. It's what you do with those resources that can be good or evil. We work all our lives to accumulate possessions. And I often bring up the question in this group, how much is enough? Mm-hmm. And if you've got more than enough, why has God given you more than enough? And so to illustrate this saying that Jesus just gave, it says, and he told them a parable. And this is a very familiar parable. We've read it many times in here. The land of a rich man that produced plenty. And he thought to himself, what shall I do? I've got nowhere to store my crops. And he said, I'll do this. I'll tear down my barns and build larger ones. And there I'll store all my grains and goods. And I will say to my soul, that's an interesting deviation right there. I will say to my soul, your innermost being, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. Relax, eat, drink, be merry. But God said to him, fool, this night your soul is required of you, and the things that you have prepared, who will they become? Mm-hmm. So is the one who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. This passage, this is a parable to illustrate a warning against covetousness. And I think of some of you will know the name, the missionary Nate Saint. Nate gave up his life to win some remote Indian tribe in a remote part of the world for the gospel of Christ. And Nate was his family knew of the risk of going into this area to share the gospel. And when they landed in this remote area, the Indians actually killed the missionaries that had landed there, who were to bring them the good news. And Nate is known to have said before this trip that you are no fool to give up what you cannot keep in order to gain what you cannot lose. Mm. Nate's wife and other missionaries from the same agency eventually were able to reach out to that same tribe of barbaric people and share the love and good news of Jesus Christ with them, which is a remarkable story in itself. And I'll just end with this. The secret of not being covetousness is contentment. So 2 C's today, covetousness and contentment. And Philippians 4, verse 11 through 13 speak about that. This is a great verse to know. It says, Paul is talking to the church in Philippi, and he's exhorting them and encouraging them how generous they have been in supporting the missionary journey, and that they had given to him. And he's saying, I'm not saying this because I'm in need, for I have learned to be content in whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to have need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation and circumstance, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so what we lack, ultimately, what our soul desires, remember the parable, he was challenged with his soul. What our soul desires is peace and contentment and being rich in Christ alone. Christ is the one who can satisfy our innermost need. And then based on that, if God has given you an abundance, then praise God. Use it to bless your family and bless the church worldwide. Many people on here that come and speak talk about how they're using their excess resources to make a difference in the world, to bring glory to God, because they have enough. You can only eat 3 meals a day.
You should only eat 3 meals a day.
Excuse me, yes. And snacks in between.
That's right.
And so Christ is the one is the only one that can totally give us that contentment. So let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you today for supplying all of our needs. Matthew 6 says, my God shall supply all of your needs in his riches in Christ Jesus. And yet, Lord, we desire for other things. And I pray that you'd help us to temper our desires with our work ethic and with our purpose on life and for your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. You know, I put in the chat box, I don't know if everybody can see it, but boy, you just stuck me right in the gut with your first sentence about covetousness and wanting more. How much do you really need? You know, I keep talking about this camping trip. Y'all are going to hear about it forever. But the first thing, my husband and I bought a small 27-foot tag along camper that's, you know, used, but it's perfect for us. And the first thing that both of us did when we pulled into our first camping spot was, wow, we need a bigger one like all of those. Because they were, I mean, with all these slide outs and, you know, 50 feet long, and they look like condos on wheels. It's amazing what's out there. And I as soon as that came out of your mouth, that's what my mind went to, because that's the first thing we did was start thinking about more, wanting more.
You know, that magazine, Better Homes and Garden, that just means better than yours.
Yeah. That's a great take. That's a great take. It's a constant battle to not want more, especially for entrepreneurs, because that is part of what drives us, you know, to continue to go more. That's a constant battle to keep our focus on really how much do we need. And one way that I've found that really, really helps me is staying focused on what I can do for others, what the gifts that God has given me, how can we use that to help others?
What do we do with our abundance is really, the secret is contentment. And what do we do with our abundance?
Yeah, it's a tough balance. That was really, really good. Thank you so much for that. Let's see, Brian, I know I saw your name on here. You're here, right, my friend? Brian Maddox. There you are. You're muted.
Yeah, there we go.
So what's happening today? It's crazy this week in the stock markets. It's up, it's down, it's sideways.
That's what happened to mortgage rates. Things were looking good for a couple of days, then things were not looking so good for a couple of days, and then things started looking good again.
So that went down. I heard it went down, what, yesterday or the day before?
Yesterday, the rates were up. The day before, rates were up. But Monday and Tuesday, rates were better. And we predicted, or I predicted, that when they raised the rates last week, the Fed raised rates, I predicted we would see a few days of better mortgage rates. And I advised a couple clients, like, don't lock, let's wait, because I think good times are coming. And they did.
That's
when the
amazing.
Fed raises rates, the bond market responds kindly. So we get rewarded with some better mortgage rates for a little bit. So yesterday or Tuesday, you know, the charts, I don't know if you guys ever do chart analysis, but there's levels of resistance and there's levels of support. And usually we end up ping-ponging between resistance and support, and it just kind of like holds rates in a channel. And that's exactly what happened. Is rates were getting better, they hit resistance and they drop back down, then we hit support and they're coming back, right? So this is rates getting better on the chart that I look at. Up is good. I'm always backwards with my explanations, but yeah, so we've seen this week rates are better than they were last week. If you paid a point or maybe just over a point, you got back into the fours. So I've had a couple people lock in the low 5% range, and I've not seen those for a while. So it's like, ooh, it's nice and refreshing.
Mm-hmm. No doubt, no doubt.
So we'll see. When we've got inflation, unemployment. We've got I just saw a metal producer just started laying off. Walmart just announced some layoffs at the corporate level. The recession, the trend is the Fed raises rates, they slow down the economy, and then unemployment will start to tick up. And we're just starting to see some headlines about unemployment. So the yield curve is inverted kindly at this point. It continues to widen. And if the Fed raises rates again in September, which the expectation is a 0.5 point, possibly 3/4 of a point, we'll see the yield curve invert even further, most likely. So recession's on its way. And I think a lot of people in this room would probably say we're in a recession right now. It's just technically not a recession. And we know we're in a recession because the government's trying to redefine what a recession is. So if they're defending that we're not in a recession, that means we're in a recession, because politicians would always guide you correctly, right?
That's right. Is it a boy? Is it a girl? Is it a recession? We're changing all kinds of things these days, aren't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just keep out there trying to do more mortgages. That's all I do.
And you do it well. You do it well.
I try.
I love, you were on our show, not this past Thursday, but last Thursday. And what you said occurred. So it was great because we've got you on video of, explaining what was getting ready to happen, and it did. So it's like you're a guru or something.
It's like I try to pay attention to the markets or something. Yeah. Yeah. Wild. But the pressure is for things to get a little worse. Inflation data is continuing. It should continue for another month or two to look worse. That's the expectation. And then hopefully in October, we're peaked and we're starting to come back down, and we're starting to see these rate hikes taking a bite out of the inflation.
Which is what it's meant to do, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I heard this morning on the way to work, they were talking about the unemployment numbers and how the government is expecting the unemployment numbers to not be lower than expected, or higher unemployment, not to be higher than expected. So I'm anxious to see what those numbers are going to come in at. I don't think they're going to make a difference one way or the other. It's like, do you believe your eyes or what I'm telling you?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see what's going to happen there. And it's just this is a ride we're unfamiliar with, because it's it's all different. I think we were talking yesterday on the show too, that we always have it's cyclical. The world is cyclical, the economy is cyclical, it always is. It's just a different cause of why it's happening.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, people always say history repeats itself. I like history rhymes, right? Because it's
Oh, I like that.
very, very similar, but it's not exactly the same as last time. You know,
Yeah.
the ride we're going to go through in this slowdown is different from the last one, which was COVID, which is different from the one before that, which was the housing crash, right? But people want this to be the housing crash. They want, oh, I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
See, I told you, right? But it's like, National Association of Realtors just said we're 5 million homes short in America.
Yeah. Still.
You can't be short 5 million homes and have a housing market that crashes. I think
Yeah.
you're going to see appreciation rates crash, but there'll still be appreciation,
Or
even though
normalize.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5.5% is a good, healthy appreciation number.
Yes.
And we've not seen that since probably 2011 or 12 or somewhere. You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
been a long time since the market's gone up only 5%.
Yeah. 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 And I think it's just interesting to watch all of this take place. And what I'm sure you all are feeling this too. I'm on a few wholesaler emails. Now, I don't know how it happened, but I'm on a bazillion, and I'm getting tons of deals coming across, well, when I say the word deal flippantly, they're not deals. A lot of the wholesalers, the newer ones, I should say, don't understand that what they considered a deal. John's shaking his head. Yes, yes, yes. What they considered a deal, 4 or 5 months ago is like off the charts, not even close. I think even in one of John's posts, somebody was trying to sell a deal at 83% of the ARV, thinking that was a deal. So everybody just needs to be smart, stick with your numbers, don't do anything silly, because it will catch up with our intelligence and the right moves we should make, right? So thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate that. You're always a great inspiration, and you make us think. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry I made you think so early.
It hurts. Folks, I am so excited to have our guest this morning. Bill Cook is just like, he's a legend. And I'm sure many of you know, yes, you are. Everybody, most of you have already heard of him. I think the thing that impressed me the most before I ever met him and his wife, Kim, this guy would take a group of people out and teach them how to door knock. They went on the front porches of people's houses with 20 people, 30 people in a group, while he teaches them how to door knock to find leads. It blew my mind that number one, people would stand there and talk to him, but it was just, it's like, you're the king of really getting back to the basics. Is, how do I find leads? How do I find leads? Get out and get on the street and look for them. And you were teaching people how to do that eons ago. But but to teach them how to do it in a group just blew my mind. And I love that you were talking about that a little bit when we were having our earlier conversation with John. But and I'm so glad that I reached out to you. I love our conversation that we had at the beginning of the week this week. You just amaze me with all the things that you're doing, all the different types of RIAs that you're doing. You just don't stop. And when I hung up the phone with Bill on, what was it, Tuesday that we talked, or Monday? I don't know, one of the two days. I was so inspired. I felt like a new person when I hung up the phone. You have no idea how much you inspired me. And we are so blessed to have you here with us this morning. So, Bill, I'm just going to let you take it away, my friend.
Okay. Well, Wendy, first of all, I want to say thanks for having me here. And a lot of y'all know it. I saw Tom Eli, he's on here. So there's a number of you guys that I've known and been out door knocking with, and have been at seminars with, so pretty neat. And with what we learn from lots of different people. So when Wendy and I were on the phone call the other day, it was just really to call up and say hello, but the call went for about 30 or 40 minutes, and it was mainly me asking Wendy questions. So we're always learning from other investors. And one of the things Kim and I are doing, a new structure for us, a new exit strategy for us, is going to be midterm rentals. So we've done long-term single family rentals forever. And we don't want to do short-term rentals because it's more like a job. You're running a hotel, not interested. But the idea of midterm rentals really appealed to us because it's something in between. And Wendy does that. And so I was just peppering Wendy with one question after another, and she was giving me information. So when we had our phone call the other day, it was Wendy teaching me. And the point of that story is you can learn from each other. There's people around you that know things that you don't know. And if you'll just ask enough questions, and people always talk about when I'm sitting talking to a seller or a buyer or a lender or a tenant or a landlord, what is it I'm focused on? And you hear things about NRP or whatever it is, where you're supposed to mirror somebody, and that's a load of crap. If you really want to build a relationship with someone, be really interested in them, ask questions about them, find out about them. And like with what Wendy does, Kim and I are full-time RVers. So we sold our horse ranch back in 2018, and I'm in our motorhome right now. And people always ask, yeah, but where do you actually live? Okay, I live in our motorhome, everywhere USA. Yeah, but do you have a house? I'm like, yeah, we have a lot of houses. Okay, so where do you live? Okay, we rent the houses out. We live in a motorhome, and people have a really hard time grasping that. I had a point of what I was just talking about, and Wendy, I totally lost the point. But anyway, I just really went wacko.
Well, living in a mobile home, obviously you and Kim get along.
Yeah, because we went from 3,000 square feet, 34 acres, 4-bedroom, 3-bath home with outbuildings, to 300 square feet, zero acres, 1-1. And that's where we've been living for the last 4 years, and wonderful life. And I think you were talking about your RV and the experience you had when it was out there, and it's a wonderful life. But anyway, I just want to say thank you for helping me with that. And also going kind of what we were talking about today, with the devotional, we talking about, you don't want to covet. And when I looked at that, it was like, you yearn to possess. That's what covet means. You want what somebody has. You want to possess what they have. And that really goes to the biggest lesson I ever learned for business, real estate investing, or anything else. And I kind of want to share that with you. So I was 19 years old, and this goes back to what Wendy talked about, my door knocking. So I've been a professional door knocker since I was 12 years old. I've only made my living at knocking on someone's door and being invited into their home. And so that's 50 years this year of me knocking on people's doors. So when I take, 40, 50, 60 people to someone's door, it's what I've always done. So that's normal to me, but it may be abnormal to somebody else. But in the door knocking, when I was 19 years old, I was putting myself through college selling Electrolux vacuums door to door. And I was having a really hard year that summer. And I had to make enough money in the summer to pay for my living and pay for college. I was on my own. And so I was covering all my costs, no student loans. And that summer, I just wasn't making it. And it looked like I was going to drop out of college and then join the military. And my mother brought home a book. Actually, it was a tape series, and it was from Zig Ziglar, and it was called See You at the Top. Now, my mother also worked for Electrolux as a salesperson, and she was a phenomenal salesperson. You know, there's certain people that can go out and just sell. That's just what they do. And I was terrible at it. I had a really tough time selling because I felt like I was doing something to someone, not for them. So that didn't really work for me. And that was the friction. And in listening to Zig's tape series, I heard him say this phrase: you will get exactly what you want out of life if you'll just help enough other people get what they want. I got to tell you, that rocked my world. And from that day to this, that has been the most important business lesson I've ever learned from anybody, anywhere, at any time. In other words, it's about them. It's not about you. And as it turns out, I was really great at service. I was really bad at selling. But when I turned my business into, I'm going to give you the best service you've ever had from anybody, anytime, anywhere, my business took off like there was no tomorrow. And I built my Electrolux career based on Zig. You'll get exactly what you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And to fast forward to real estate investing, understand what our job is. And again, this goes with, coveting. Our job is not to buy, sell, or rent houses. Our job is to help people solve their real estate problems. And as we'll talk about today a little bit, the first thing you have to do is you have to find someone with the problem. Second, you have to understand what the problem is fully. Third is you have to have the ability, the knowledge, the experience to help them solve that problem. And oftentimes, as real estate investors, we are not the best solution. We're a solution, but oftentimes not the best solution. And so I will always make a written offer. When I'm talking to a seller, I'm going to always make the written offer and say, here's a solution. This is not what I think you should do. What I think you should do is, and then I'll outline for them and tell them, give them a direction that they should take. I'm a fast solution. I'm an easy solution. But I'll tell them that. And oftentimes they will take my offer. But I make sure that I'm straight up front with everybody and just say, hey, but truly what's going through my heart is going back to Zig, which is you'll get exactly what you want out of life if you just help enough other people get what they want. And if you don't have everything you want, find more people to help, find more problems to solve, and that will rectify the problem. It's a really simple solution, but it's not easy. And the other thing is, again, because we started off with a devotional, I want to go biblical. And, we talked about door knocking, Wendy, and I want you to know that God wants you to door knock. And he tells us this in the Bible. Matthew 7:7, baby. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened. I mean, it can't be more biblical than door knocking. Knock and the door shall be open. So I love Matthew 7:7, one of my favorite quotes. So I'm going to switch over a little bit and cover a little stuff about real estate investing. Is that okay, Wendy?
Absolutely.
I'm not going to do a slideshow because I want y'all to ask questions. I want to have a discussion. I've been doing Zoom now for about 2 years. Ever since COVID started, we all kind of boned up on Zoom pretty fast. And when I'm doing Zoom, all I can see are slides and a little green light on the top of my computer, but I can't see faces, and that makes it a lot harder for me. And I can't really, it's hard for me to do feedback. And that's why I love teaching in person, because I can see faces when they're not understanding, or we can have a back and forth. It's much easier. So please feel free to interrupt or ask questions as we go. So the first thing, as far as with Kim and me, understand that we're not rock stars. I think, Wendy used the thing legend. I know legends. I went to legends in the form of Kim and I got lucky. Back in the 90s, I found 3 absolutely incredible real estate investing teachers, and they were Jack Miller and Pete Fortunato and Dykes Botiford. And those 3 teachers, I started going to everything they taught. And people ask me, if I'm a newer investor, should I go to an advanced deal structuring class? And the answer is, it depends on you. You've got to decide. My answer was absolutely, because I was trying to learn the language of creative deal structuring. And I still remember the first time I was going to these seminars, and let's say I was sitting in Jack's seminar, I understood when he said good morning. I understood when he said it's time for lunch. I understood when he said thank you for coming. And everything he said in between that, I had no clue. And I was sitting in a room full of really smart investors, and they were asking questions and debating with Dykes and debating with Pete and debating with Jack. And I'm going, I don't even know what the heck they're talking about. It was a brand new language to me. But I know that the only way to learn a language is you have to immerse yourself in it, and you have to stay immersed. And a good example is right now I'm learning Spanish, and I'm using a program called Duolingo. I'm about 455 days in a row of not missing a lesson, but that's not enough to learn Spanish. So in December, I'm moving to Mexico. We're going to go just south of Guadalajara, and we'll stay there for the winter. So I've been wintering in St. Pete. I've been, hanging out a lot with Pete Fortunato during the winter times, but now I'm going to be going to Spanish speaking countries for the next 3 years because I want to become fluent in Spanish. And the only way to do that is you have to go live in a place where all they speak is that language. And it's not enough to just immerse yourself. You have to stay immersed. And here's what I mean. My very first language was not English. In fact, English was my third language. My first language was Spanish. So I was born in Barranquilla, Colombia, and then we moved to Guatemala, Tikasati, Guatemala. So I spoke Spanish, and then we moved to Thailand, and I learned Thai. So when we moved to the States, when I was almost 7, it was time for me to go to school. I spoke Spanish and I spoke Thai fluently. I didn't speak a word of English. Then I had to learn English, and because the kids made fun of me, I quit speaking Spanish and Thai. And by the time I was 12 or 13, I couldn't speak Spanish or Thai anymore, though I had been fluent in that language at some point in time. And the point of that story is you have to immerse yourself in the language. We're moving to Mexico so I can relearn Spanish, but you have to stay immersed. You have to stay around people who are talking creative deal structuring. You have to be in those classes. You have to be around them. That's why it's so important to show up in person, and you'll pick up the language. So I got lucky by having 3 really great teachers, and I went to everything they taught. And over the course of time, I learned. Over the course of time, I picked up, but I picked up in bits and pieces. And if you'll go to our website, it's billingkimcook.com, you'll see a button on the top right-hand side. It's about Bill and Kim. That's the name of the button. And if you click on it, you'll see our bio. And frankly, you don't care about our bio. You don't care about what we've done. And I get that. But below the bio, you're going to see our timeline. And what I did is I placed the years from the year I started on down, and each year the different techniques I learned. And what I want you to see is I didn't go to a class or spend a year learning and have it all. You're going to look and realize it took us years and years to become competent at creative deal structuring. So in what you see today, and some of the I'm going to try to go over 2 deals this morning. I want you to understand where this came from. It came from over time. It came from being around other investors. It came like the conversation Wendy and I had where we were just talking, and it turns out she's an expert in midterm rentals, and I'm not. I'm nowhere close to it. I don't know anything about it. And I'm gathering my information from Wendy. But if we hadn't talked and I hadn't found that out, I would have missed a great opportunity to learn from someone who knows a lot more about midterm leasing than I do. So thank you, Wendy.
I'm not an expert at midterm. I'm just glomming on to others that are. And it's continual. The learning is continual, isn't it, Bill? It
never stops.
It never stops. And I love the way you were talking about immersing yourself. When I first got into this business in 2001, I was a conventional mortgage broker. Had a company with Larry Goins where we did nothing but investor loans. And I went to every single RIA in North and South Carolina every month. I was on the road the whole time. And then I'd come back to work in the morning. And that's exactly what I did, is I was able to immerse myself and learn from a multitude of people every day. So spot on what you're saying. Spot on.
Yep. And this morning, let's talk a little bit about investing in this market, which is an inflationary market. I think we can all agree inflation is here. And Wendy, you were talking a little bit earlier about, people are looking saying, the market's going to crash and it's 2008. It's not 2008. It's nothing like 2008. And I liked also when it was said that history rhymes. So let's kind of look at that for a minute. In 2005, 6, and 7, you had a lot of lenders doing some really stupid loans. For example, you could do something called a stated income loan, which was a liar loan. That's how they were known, because if you wanted to buy a certain house and you needed $400,000 to buy that house, but you need to make $400,000 to qualify for that loan, but you only made $100,000, the lender would look at you and say, well, you need to be making $400,000. You need to be able to tell me that. And you would say, okay, I make $400,000. They went, great, you qualified for the loan. That's
right.
why it's called liar loan. And the loan you would qualify for is the interest rate would start off at like 1% for the first 3 years and then adjust after 3 years to like 7%.
Yeah.
So it was an adjustable mortgage. So you could afford the payments the first 3 years, but there's no way you were going to afford the payments the next three, after 3 or 4 years, because it was the payments were going to jump so much. And it just didn't make any sense what was happening. And also you saw houses going up everywhere. And I used to call them pipe farms. Remember in 4, 5, and 6, when you drove around, you would see these great big, pieces of dirt that had been leveled off and these white pipes sticking up everywhere out of the dirt, because that was the sewer for the houses that were about to go in. And houses were being built by anybody, everybody, all the time. That's what was happening. And you do not have that today. And you don't have the liar loans on the books today. So we got to look and say, okay, what in history, let's go back and say, what is this market like? Can someone tell me the last time that real estate investors were working in a highly inflationary market? When was that?
I can't remember.
Anybody alive and living on their own in 1980, 81, 82, 83?
Yeah.
A lot of you are too young for that. So you don't know that history. Well, that's when I came out of college. So that was the world I grew up in. You don't remember you don't remember President Ford saying, the win button, whip inflation now, and Jimmy Carter going crazy and not doing it right. And then when Reagan came in, the Fed raised interest rates to like 18%. So you're seeing it now at 4 going, wow, that's incredible. Well, they had to Volcker had to raise it to 18% because they're trying to kill inflation. So this is more like what the market's like today. And the easiest thing to do, and I just started doing this about a week ago, you got to go to someone who was investing around that time and see what they did. And so there's a website out there, and you might want to write this down. It's called Cash Flow Depot. Cash Flow Depot. And that is a website Jackie Lang set up, and it contains all of Jack Miller's information, all his teaching information. Again, Jack was one of my teachers, and Jack started teaching how to make money and invest in single family houses in the mid 70s. And he was the very first one to go on the road doing this. No one else was doing this. So all the stuff you see on TV, all the flip the house, all the things you see, John Schaub, all that kind of stuff, all that dates back to when Jack first started teaching. Everything, all the books you see out, he was the first. And so his teaching information is on Cash Flow Depot. But he also wrote, and this is what's important, he wrote a monthly newsletter he used to publish called Commonwealth. It's called the Commonwealth Letter. And those newsletters, those letters, those monthly letters he sent out are on Cash Flow Depot. So you can go back to the years 1980, 1981, 1982, 1983, and read those newsletters, because he's telling us, here's how you invest in an inflationary market. And it's fascinating. So again, history is rhyming. And so I'm just going back and looking at his structures, and we'll talk a little bit about those structures right now. And one of the things y'all, and by the way, to Cash Flow Depot is not a free site. It was set up by Jackie Lang, and she did it for Jack Miller. And earlier this year, Jackie turned Cash Flow Depot over to me and Kim. So we're now the caretakers of that website. And it's a huge honor, because again, this is Jack Miller's information. And the way you do the site, we're just doing lifetime membership. I think it's $2.99 but you get all the information, all those courses, well worth it. If you feel it, if you get it and don't like it, call us, we'll give you your money back, but you'll find the information there.
And Bill, I think
Anyway.
it's important for everyone here to know, just in case you don't already know it, Jack Miller is all the gurus guru. Like everybody that you know that's in the real estate business that produces product, that teaches, that does really well, all the big names, everybody learned from him.
He was the first. He was the first that went on the road and said, here's how you do it. And if you want to see a little bit about Jack Miller, Prentice Yates, a good friend of mine, just sent me some videos and pictures of Jack Miller. And Jackie Lang and Jack Miller's son, Chris, put together a video, as it turns out, that no one's ever seen. And Prentice sent it to me. And I put it together in a better format. And I put that video up on our website. And you can go to it. So if you go on our website, scroll down a little bit, you'll see a section that's called Interviews with Real Estate Investing Legends. And you'll see his interview that I just put up earlier this week. Click on it. Watch that video, because it's snippets of Jack teaching and the way he thought and the travel that he did. It's just an outstanding video. So again, you'll find that at BillandKimCook.com.
And all of that is in the chat box, folks. Go to your chat box. I've typed all that into the chat box. And
Jack was one of a kind. When you talk about legends, Jack Miller, legend. So let's talk about what makes an inflationary market different from all other markets. Y'all tell me, what makes an inflationary market, the market we're in right now, what makes it different from what it was 3 years ago? Say it in a sentence. Y'all have to talk to me.
Come on, everybody. Don't let me do it. Anybody got any ideas?
What's different in an inflationary market? What's happening in an inflationary market?
The way I see it right now in our area is that the days on market is rising. So that's what I'm seeing compared to just a month or two ago, where houses are sold within a week. Now it's taking about 30 days, 45 days. It's getting longer.
It's taking longer, but let's just talk about the market overall. What happens in the inflationary market?
Andres has his hand up too. He was going to say something. Go ahead.
The cost of gas is going up. The cost of groceries is going
Yeah,
up. People are
exactly.
feeling it in their pocket.
Exactly. The cost of everything goes up. Okay. And so we're looking at this and saying, okay, inflationary market, should we wait? Who knows what's going on? You know, whenever things are changing, whenever the cheese is moving, a lot of investors run for cover. It's kind of like your chickens, right? When the chicken hawks out, the chickens run for cover. And people get scared and they pull back. We saw that in 2008, when all of a sudden all the investors, all the gurus, all the teachers, everything, all the RIAs, everything closed up and went home, which was 2008 was the best time to be buying property. And everybody left because they were scared. So in an inflationary market, everything costs more. But now let's talk. So if you think I've got to stop, let me wait. I don't want to be out there talking to people. You know, we don't know where prices are going. What are rents going to do? Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about how this market is the same as all other markets. So I want you to think of a 5-mile circle around your house. Okay. We're not going to go across the country, but just wherever it is you live, 5-mile circle. Are kids being born? Are people dying?
Mm-hmm.
Do kids reach school age and go to school for the first time? Do kids go to college and move away from home for the first time?
Mm-hmm.
Are people getting fired? Are people getting hired? Are people getting married? Are they getting divorced? Are people moving to where it is you are? Are people moving away from where it is you are? Do people win the lottery where you are? Do people lose their jobs and everything they own where you are? And the answer to all these questions is yes. All this is happening within a 5-mile circle around you. And these things can lead to a real estate problem. And you heard me say earlier, our job as investors is not to buy, sell, or rent houses. Our job is to help people solve their real estate problems. And the things I just said often lead to some sort of real estate problem. And one of the key mistakes I see many investors make is they become very technique driven. In other words, you'll learn about a subject to deal, and that becomes the one tool in your deal structuring toolbox. And when you go and talk to anybody and everybody, the only offer you make is a subject to a deal offer, or maybe it's master leasing, or maybe it's wholesaling, or maybe it's flipping. But whatever this tool is in your toolbox, you use that and you go around whacking everything with just that one tool. So you become very specific in the tool you're using. And Pete Fortunato teaches us over and over again, don't be technique driven, be solution driven, be problem solving driven. And today, the structures that in an inflationary market, going back reading what Jack said, the structures that are working best in this market are master leases. And a master lease is a great tool. And if you took away all my deal structuring tools and said I can only use one, and you took away all our assets, all our money, everything, we're homeless. You take away everything we have and you say, Bill, you can only use one tool and have it in your deal structuring toolbox, and you're having to start over, but with the knowledge that you have, without question or doubt, it would be a master lease. And I'll explain what a master lease is in a minute, but it allows you to control real estate without having to buy it. And it allows you to get cash flow without having to buy it. And it allows you to control real estate without having the expenses of owning the real estate. And it's just a wonderful tool. And all a master lease is also known as a sandwich lease, also known as a wraparound lease. It's just, if you have a property, I'm going to rent the property, your property from you, because maybe you don't like tenants, or you moved away, or you don't have time, or your health is failing. I'm going to rent your home from you. And I have the right to rent that property to a tenant occupant who's going to live in it. So this is not property management, because to do property management in most states, you have to be a realtor. So I'm not property management. What I'm doing is I'm the property owner's tenant. And then I have the right to lease to somebody else. And when you're unsure of the market, if the market's going up, down, or sideways, you can always do a master lease, because it gives you time to be in that property and work with it until you're more sure of what's going to happen in the future. The second tool, you give me two tools. The second tool would be something called a pure option. And an option is a right to buy the property at some point in the future at a pre-agreed to price, pre-agreed to terms. But in the case of the person who is getting the option, me, I don't have to exercise my option. I don't have to buy the property, but the person who owns a home is locked in to sell to me. They can't sell to somebody else. So they're obligated. I'm not obligated. So when you're doing a master lease with a pure option, those two tools really allow you to safely control a lot of property. Some other techniques that you've heard of that are working well in this market: owner financing, subject to deals, and also something I call structure stacking. So when you're tool driven, when you're going to go and everything's going to be a subject to deal, that's not how it works in the real world of creative deal structuring. Most of the time, what I see happen is, in our deals anyway, often we're using a number of creative deal structuring tools to make a single transaction possible. So it's not just a subject to deal. It might be a title holding trust combined with a subject to deal, combined with an owner carry note for part of the equity, combined with a master lease that I give to another investor, combined with another lease to for that investor to get the property to their tenant. So that'd be 5 different tools to make that one transaction work, versus being a single technique driven. And when people ask, where do you learn this creative deal structuring? You know, I gave you the website, told you to go look at our timeline, but the answer is join Urea, be a part of this group, show up, but you have to participate. You can't just sit there listening. So I'm learning Spanish. I'm learning Spanish from a program where they talk to me and they ask me questions, and I've got to answer questions and I got to type it in. That's not good enough. We're moving to Guadalajara because I've got to be out there. I've got to be among people. I've got to be talking Spanish every day. And that is how you learn. So join the RIA, show up, volunteer, get dirty with the thing, you know, be a part of it. Don't just be on the outskirts, including this meeting. And one of the things we've seen that has killed creative deal structuring really since 2012 is we've had this huge appreciation. We've had low interest rates. We've had, you know, incredible rent rates have gone up. And those of you that have been investing in 2012, you've never seen a downturn. You weren't around for 2007, 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. You missed that. And you weren't around in 80, 81, 82, 83 when we had huge inflation. And you missed the you missed the 2000 tech bubble when it exploded and real estate went down, everything collapsed down. So we've had different downturns, but there's ways you can learn to structure and do much better and do it safely. But since 2012, the big thing has been wholesaling and flipping. And all the gurus that go around talk about wholesaling and flipping. In other words, there's just one tool in their deal structuring toolbox, which is the big damn hammer, which is an all cash 70 cent on the dollar offer minus expenses. Wham! And this is the only tool in the toolbox. And this is the only thing this is the only thing they're doing. But with creative deal structuring, you can pay more than what a house is worth and still make the property, the deal work for you if you can get the terms right.
Mhm.
And if anyone's been door knocking with me, you'll verify this. I often will make an offer for a property for $1 trillion. I'm trying to prove a point when I'm doing this, but I will offer and be willing to pay $1 trillion for a single family house. As long as they allow me to set the terms, which is how much that payment is going to be each month. How will I pay back that $1 trillion? And that property will cash flow. I'm happy to pay $1 trillion for the house. So don't think, hey, the price is going to affect the deal. And if you don't get your price at 70 cents on the dollar, you can't do the deal. There's other ways to set the transaction, which is you have to be able to get the terms and everything's going to work for you.
Bill, we've got Roxanne has a question. Her
Yeah.
hand is up.
Yeah, but by the way, Roxanne, don't raise your hand. Y'all don't raise your hands.
Just
We're
butt
real
in.
estate investors. Just butt in. Just say, hey, Bill.
Hi, thank you for letting me in. I'm glad to be here. It's my first time. You were talking about inflation, how it affects us, right? I think that inflation scares us. That was what you said, but I think it also sometimes cripples us, right? When you're scared and you're fearful, you're crippled, or you feel somewhat incapacitated, and sometimes you just don't know how to move forward. So all of these ideas are useful, and I thank you.
Awesome.
Oh, you're welcome very much. And you're right. Fear incapacitates everybody. When we were watching the bombing of the World Trade Towers, you saw everybody running from the towers as fast as they could go, but you saw people who were trained running toward the towers.
Mm-hmm.
They had overcome their fear. Now they were still scared, but they were running at the problem, not away from the problem. And I know when we had the collapse in 2007 is when we started seeing it go down. And then 2008, it just became a steamrolling thing down the hill. And I'm embarrassed to say this, but it wasn't till the end of 2009 before Kim and I got our legs under us. We were so unsure of what the market was and what was happening. And we were scared. There were so many deals we could have done that we didn't do. But looking back, there would have been incredible deals because we were scared. And by 2009, because of my ability to structure deals and because I felt more confident, and we were using a lot of master leases with a lot of options. So I was not locked into stuff. So I really learned to use those two tools well. I learned to do Lonnie deals. I bought a mobile home park, affordable housing. I was doing owner financing. I was doing subject to deals. So we were using tools that worked well in that market. And by the end of 2009, we were off and running. But please know that in 7 and 8 and most of 9, I was terrified. And I look back at that and I'm embarrassed. But I had to go through that because that was the worst real estate market we've had since the Great Depression in the 1930s. We've not seen that in almost like 80, 90 years, whatever it was. We just hadn't seen it. And I was scared. And then learned how to structure better, how to structure in that market. So if you're scared of this market, learn how to structure in an inflationary market and you won't be scared. But I promise you, in any market that's out there anymore, I will never be scared again. I will run, especially when there's a problem out there. When everybody's trying to sell and get out, that's when you should be buying. And when everybody's buying and the market's going up, that's when you should be selling. Go opposite of everybody else. Don't do what all the lemmings are doing, running off the cliff. Be that lemming that's trying to go the other way. Don't go run off that cliff. Don't be like everybody else.
Right. Andres, what do you have to say?
I had a question, you know, with regards to paying more for houses than what they're worth. So I understand the concept. Um, I've done some owner financing in subject to, but what I have never done is pay more than what the house is worth. And you know, I wonder if you're doing a lot of these deals and you run out of your own money or people that really trust you, that you can fund some of the, you know, setup costs for these deals. Like, let's say this seller needs, or you need to catch up the mortgage or whatever, and you need 15,000 or 20,000, whatever. And you're running out of the resources that are around you, and you're talking to people that you don't know as much to raise private capital. How do you or do you do this? How do you talk to them, and then how do you secure their position in the deal, or how do you partner with them so that they're okay investing with you even though you're paying more than the house is worth?
Great question. And Wendy, we're at time. So
You go.
if you don't, okay, I'm going to go forward, but I want you to know, I know we're supposed to end at 8:30, and I'm going to answer this question by using an example of a deal, but whenever you need me to stop, just say, hey, stop. Okay. Because
People
again,
aren't dropping. We're still sitting at 49 people. I think they're happy.
okay. So my job is to teach and to pass along information. And when you tell me to stop, I'll stop. So great question, Andre. And let me give you an example of a deal that we did. In fact, where I am is in Adairsville, Georgia right now, and literally a quarter mile to my right, going that would, I don't know what I'm pointing the thing, but it's to my right. That's where this property is. Okay. This is the deal. This is where this deal is. So I'm a quarter mile away from it. And back in 2008, I had told my friends I wanted to move to affordable housing, and we looked at doing Lonnie deals. And a Lonnie deal is where you buy a mobile home in somebody's mobile home park. So you don't own the dirt, just the mobile home. And then you buy the home for cash and you turn around and you sell it on time. So you're in the note business. You're not in the landlording business. You're in the note business. And mobile homes are affordable housing. So I let my friends know, hey, this is what I'm doing now. And one of my friends, his name's Kermit Hopper. I'm not making this name up. Kermit Hopper III. He's German. And what's funny is I have another investor here that's in Cartersville, one of my private money lenders, and I helped him do some deals. And he delivered my office manager's baby. His name is Dr. Ribbot, Rebo. But the way you spell it is Ribbit. And I've always wanted to bring Kermit Hopper and Dr. Ribbit into the same deal, because I thought, if I can pull this off, no one's going to believe these two people are real. So I'm going to interview them so everybody knows this is a real deal. So before I die, I want Ribbit and Hopper in the same thing. But anyway, so Kermit had called me up and said that he had someone who wanted to move into his lease option house, but he had a trailer in the Adairsville mobile home park that he needed to sell first. And so I went and met with this seller, and the main thing he wanted was the house that he wanted to move into. He had been living in this mobile home for I think it was about 10 years. It was a 10-year-old mobile home. And he had lived in another mobile home older than that before that. So he'd been in a mobile home for a while. And he and his wife saw this house. It was a nice split level and he wanted it. And the house was 2 doors away from his sister. And it was about, 6-7 minutes away from where he lived now. So he's here in Adairsville, but not a long drive, but he wanted this house. And Kermit needed $3,000 down as a non-refundable option fee to get the house. And this man did not have it. And when I went to meet with him, he wanted $11,400 for his mobile home. And to me, that mobile home was only worth $5,000. So you can see that he wanted, I'm going to keep this example simple instead of using trillions of dollars. I'm going to keep this example simple, but he wanted more than double than I was willing to pay for this mobile home. What this mobile home was worth to me was $5,000. He wanted $11,400. Now I want you to think of a teeter-totter. In fact, if you would, Andres, draw a picture of a teeter-totter on a piece of paper, right? And there's 2 seats on a teeter-totter. And above one seat, I want you to put the word price. And on the other seat, put the word terms. So a teeter-totter has two seats: price, terms, price, terms. And when I'm making an offer, I will give the person I'm making an offer to, and that could be whether it's a landlord, a tenant, a lender, a borrower, a seller, a buyer, whatever we're dealing with. I don't care what it is. There's two seats, and I will give them whichever seat they want. So in this case, this seller said, I want $11,400. They wanted price. So I always say, yes, whatever that number is, I don't care, but I get this seat. And so I said, I will pay you I'll pay you $11,400. He needed $3,000 to get into Kermit's house. So I'll give you $3,000 down that I did not have, by the way. And I'll make you payments of $100 per month until this note is paid. 84 payments of $100 a month. So can you see that at $100 per month, that this becomes a very doable deal for me, because I can rent the home out at $300 some odd dollars, or sell the home and get a note for $300 some odd dollars. And that's going to be the cash flow we're going to get here. So I said yes to this deal. So I'm way overpaying for this home. Now, Adairsville is this big. This is my hometown. This is where our horse ranch was. Is this big? Everybody knows everybody. And so after I got done meeting with him, and after we came up with this agreement, this accord, he went around and told everybody in Adairsville. He went to Sue's barbershop. He went to the Napa, this is where all the old guys hang out, right? He went to the McDonald's, and he went to the Hardee's, saying, that old Bill Cook, he's supposed to be sometime a wheeler dealer in real estate. He's supposed to be sometime a big time negotiator. Man, I took him to the cleaners. I wanted $11,400, and we agreed on $11,400. I didn't back off this thing 1 inch, man. I held my way. He's supposed to be some type of guy. But man, let me tell you how I took him to the cleaners. And when I went to anywhere in Adairsville, I got laughed at. Remember, I paid the $11,400, $100 a month until paid.
And
we did the deal. And he got us $3,000, and he moved out. He gave the $3,000 to Kermit Hopper. That was the non-refundable option fee, and he got the house. I got his trailer, which was in really great shape, that we turned around and we sold. And I think the payments were about $350 or $375 a month. Now, I didn't have the $3,000. So I'd never done a Lonnie deal before. I had no experience. And this is important what I'm saying here. I didn't know how to do this structure, that I'd done a bunch of single family homes. So I brought in Dykes Botiford. And I said, I need you to look over my shoulder. So I found the deal. I'm going to take care of the property, but I don't know how to do this. And I said, you look over my shoulder and I'll give you half the deal. And you have to give me the $3,000 that I'll pay you back. That's the first money in, first money out comes to pay you back your $3,000. And then everything else we split 50-50. So that's where the money came from. And Dice looked over my shoulder, helped me with the paperwork. He oversaw what I was doing. So important. So if you don't know how to structure, bring in the gray hair or bald heads that know what they're doing. Bring in those experienced investors. Give up the deal or part of the deal in order to gain the experience. And that's what I did here. Now, your question was, what if I paid too much for the trailer? There's something called the second bite of the apple. Second bite of the apple deal. So this is yet an additional deal structure. And we did this going into this deal. I knew I was going to do this before I ever said yes. So we did this deal, I think in September, and I made the payment in October. I made a payment. No, we did this deal in October. I made November's payment, December's payment. And then on December the 15th, I went to him and said, I really appreciate, you trusted me and doing this deal with me. We love the home. We've got it sold. We're getting this check and we're really happy. But the strangest thing just happened is I just did another deal and I have $2,250 sitting here extra that I don't have anything to do with. And I'll be very happy to give you this $2,250 in exchange for the note that I gave you. Or I'll continue paying you the note of $100 per month until it's paid. Either way, we're happy, but I just wanted you to have that option. So Andre, what do you think the sellers, which offer do you think the seller took?
I'm assuming in your case that they settled for less. And took the $2,000.
And almost every time, like except for once, when I've done this second bite of the apple transaction, because remember, we're not talking about his home anymore, are we? He got $11,400. He got his amount. Now we're 2 months later, and now we're talking about something different, which is, would you rather have $100 a month, or would you rather have $2,250 cash? And because it was Christmas time, and because he just moved into a home and I knew he had some expenses, I was pretty sure he was going to take the cash, and he did. But what if he didn't? Was that still a good deal?
Yeah.
Yeah. So either option he went to, but I wanted you to see how I deal with things when someone comes to me and I do pay way too much for a house. I will go back to them, and all except for one time. And the one time that the person decided to keep getting payments, I talked him in to keep getting payments. It was on a property we own on 209 Green Acre Lane that some of y'all have heard me tell before, but he agreed to the second bite of the apple. He agreed to I think I owed him about 82,000 at the time, and he agreed to accept 45,000. But when I found out why he was accepting the 45,000 is because he was scared. He didn't know what would happen if something happened to me and Kim. I explained what would happen if something happened to me and Kim. His fears were relieved. And I said, since you're not scared, why don't we just keep making you payments, because you're happy that way. But anytime you want me to buy you out, I will. And so he decided to keep accepting the payments. And that was in 2013. And we still have that deal today, 209 Green Acre Lane. And so I was happy paying. And that particular house, when I bought his house, it was worth 70, and I paid 85,000. And I got owner financing from him, where I gave him $2,000 down and a note for $83,000 at 4% interest. So either way he went, I was happy with. So that's the reality of what really happens when you're overpaying for a house. Does that help?
Yeah. So that
Hey, Bill.
helped.
Yeah.
This is Brian, real quick. So on that first deal you're talking about, it was just a random number. You just came into some amount of cash and just offered it up and see if you would take it.
Well, I was gonna remember, I didn't want to pay more than $5,000, right?
Right.
That's what I thought the home was worth. And so we'd given him 3, correct?
Gotcha.
And I gave him 2 payments of $100. And so then it was going to be 2,000 plus 3,000 plus $200. So it was going to be $5,200. But as it was, I don't like to give just two. I wanted to give a kind of a weird number. So that's why it was 2,250. So basically he got $5,500. And that was my number. That I was comfortable with paying that. That's what I ended up paying for the house. It just took me 3 months to get this deal together. And the other point is, when I got this deal done and I ended up getting my price after 3 months, do you think I went around to all my friends in Adairsville going, yeah, kid, let me tell you the second part of this deal. Let me tell you how I took this guy to the cleaners. You know, he couldn't hang with me, man. He thought he had me, but in fact, I had him. Do y'all think I did that?
Nope.
Not a chance. And to this day, when I'm sitting around talking to someone, more than likely that story will come up. Someone's gonna say, remember how Bill Cook, he's supposed to be this great creative deal structurer. Remember when he got taken on that property over on Poplar Springs? Remember when that guy just did him in? And they still do that. And everybody still thinks I got bettered on that deal. I didn't.
That's right. That's fine, isn't it?
Yep.
Bill, I want to make sure that you do 2 things before we go. I want you to talk about What Box real quick. And then I think you have an event coming up just in a couple of weeks, right?
Well, I'm going to talk about 2 things.
Okay.
First is, and this will help both ways. So I just kind of touched on things, but y'all weren't able to see slides or see the deals that involve structure stacking. So
Well, we'll have you come back for sure.
Yeah. Well, starting this past Tuesday and also last night, and also this coming Monday, I'm doing something called What Box School, and it's free. And this is a thing I'm doing on Zoom. And it's about structure stacking. I'm showing deals and where they involve the different tools. So it's a different deal every night. And you're watching how I'm structuring to make what would look like an impossible deal possible and profitable. And these calls were recorded. So I'm going to be going over them this afternoon, and they'll be on my website either tonight or sometime tomorrow. So the first class I did this past Tuesday will be on there. The class I did last night will be on our website, but you can sign up, go to our website, and you can sign up for Deal School, which is about structure stacking for Monday night. That'll be from 7 to 8 p.m. So that's going to be a big help for you, but you'll be able to see really how a deal works and the numbers behind it. The second thing I have coming up is on August the 20th and 21st, I'm doing something called What Box. And it's an advanced creative deal structuring. And the focus is on structure stacking. So instead of talking about just a subject to deal or just a master lease, I don't go into a lot of detail about the different tools. I expect you to kind of know how those tools work. But what I'm really showing is how do you make those tools work together? In other words, instead of just listening to a violin or an oboe or a tuba or a trumpet, it's listening to the symphony. It's having we talked about, things being rhyming. Well, this is playing in harmony, having different instruments play in harmony that makes an orchestra sound like an orchestra and not an individual instrument. But you can get full information about Cash Flow Depot or about What Box by going to our website. Now, we'll tell you one thing. If you want to attend, you can get a $50 discount off the price. And the key word you have to use is special. So if you go to sign up on the discount code, you have to use the word special. And this will be both an in-person class, which I strongly suggest you take, or it can also be a Zoom class. Now we're giving a travel discount for those who are showing up in person. It's to be less. And the Zoom price is more expensive, but you can go there and get full information. So that's going to be What Box.
That's awesome. And they can go to billandkimcook.com to learn about all of that.
Yeah. And I also have interviews. You'll see as you go down, you'll see interviews I've done. It's a video heavy website, but I just did an interview with earlier this year. I posted an interview I did with Dyke Spotiford. It's an hour and a half. So if you want to know how how successful investors and the investors who are the legends, how they think and what's going on and how they started, that's what these interviews are for.
Wow. Folks, I want you to understand what you're listening to. All the free stuff that he's giving away, education after education after education. This is a great way to start immersing yourself and following Bill and Kim. It's amazing what you're doing and what you're doing to give back. It's just amazing, and we're grateful for it. I thank you so much. Thank you.
Hey, Wendy, but before we end,
Yes.
can I add one other thing, just one lesson from door knocking, because you did want me to talk about door knocking.
Absolutely.
So the most important lesson in door knocking, and Wendy told you that I take groups out. I retired from doing that in 2020. It had nothing to do with COVID. It's just I've been doing it for 50 years. So I still door knock for me, but taking 60 people out and dragging them around a neighborhood, that just got old. That was a hard thing for me to do. And I did it all across the country. And I've been taking groups out door knocking since I was 18 years old. I sold vacuums for door to door for 18 years, taking groups out. And then as a real estate investor, I took groups out. It just got time and I got tired. But the most important thing you do when you're door knocking, when you knock on the door, back up 10 paces. That's 30 feet. Don't stand at the door. Don't stand on the step. Don't stand at the stoop, because the door is not going to open for you because you're too close. And 30 feet is too far away, which means when someone answers the door because you're too far away, they will come outside on the stoop. They'll come outside and talk to you, and you can have a face-to-face conversation versus talking through the door.
Wow.
So that's really important. And I would always tell people when I took a group out door knocking that 3 things are going to happen. And this didn't matter. Didn't matter where I was. And this happened. I don't remember what the numbers were when I door knocked there, but this has happened. This happens every time I go out door knocking, whether I'm by myself or with a group of people. So first thing is I'll make between 5 and 10 written offers every day. And this is in neighborhoods I've never been into before and don't know anything about the values of the prices, but I'll make 5 to 10 written offers a day. The second thing is, ready for this? 8 out of 10 sellers will invite us in, the whole group.
Wow.
And a seller is someone whose house is for sale. You're talking to the owner and the house is not under contract. So that's a seller, but 8 out of 10 sellers will invite us in. So if your marketing strategy you're using gets you to the kitchen table, 80% of the time you're doing well. If not, you might want to try knocking on a door. And I don't mean be a full-time door knocker, but when you see a house that interests you, knock on that door, talk to that person. And the third thing that happens is, and people always talk about how competitive the market is, I always find between 1 and 3 shadow sellers. And a shadow seller is someone who's going to put their house on the market in the next 12 months. Nobody knows about them. The neighbors rat them out. Well, Tom across the street is going to be getting ready to move to Florida, or Frank down the street, you know, his mother's sick and he's going to go take care of his mother and has to sell his home. So I get in 80% of the houses. We make 5 to 10 written offers, and we find 1 to 3 shadow sellers. That's why I door knock. So door knock, back up 10 paces, and they'll come out and talk to you.
I love that. I've never heard that, and it absolutely makes sense. I love that. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What's your calendar look like for next Friday?
I will be preparing for what, I got to look at the calendar. Let me.
Because I got 43 people sitting here that are saying, hey, we want more.
I can, if y'all want me to do next Friday, I can do next Friday. I will be down in Largo and prepping up for what box. So that's going to be the Friday before we do the weekend. So I'll be available, but it's going to be tight.
Well,
Oh no, wait, I apologize. I won't be available. I'll be at Pete's McDonald's.
well, poo.
I'm sorry. When I'm in Largo, which is where we park our RV, which is right next to, it's about 7 miles from Pete. Pete goes to his McDonald's every morning at 8 o'clock. He walks in, and he's been doing that since 1986. And so when I'm there, and that's why I spend my winters there, at 8 o'clock, I walk into Pete's McDonald's, and we're there usually for about an hour and a half. So if I ever come down to any event in Tampa, you may want to come in a couple of days early and go to Pete's McDonald's, which is at Madeira Beach. But there's always a number of investors there. Most of them are seasoned, grizzly, and experienced.
Well, you know, it won't hurt our feelings if you go in 30 minutes early and turn on your laptop and let us in.
Yeah, Pete won't do that. Pete, yeah. It's being
You don't have to
broadcast.
tell him.
Yeah, I know Pete well enough to know he's being recorded. And when you start recording Pete, his information changes drastically.
We can make sure the recording's off. We'll
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
We'll talk. Thank you so much. If we can't get you next Friday, of course, I'm going to get you in again. This has been just incredible good stuff. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for all that you've shared. It's just amazing. Folks, just go to billandkimcook.com. I've written it in the chat box several times. And I'm looking to see if Don Harris is still. Don Harris, are you still on here?
And one thing, y'all can call me too. So the website's
yeah.
one thing, but there's my phone number. And people always ask, well, you know, should I text you first? I'm 62 years old. Don't text me first. Pick up your phone and call me. If I'm busy, it goes to a voicemail. Now, I've had about 4 phone calls since I've been sitting here. And
I love
I'll
it.
go for a walk here in a minute, and everybody will call me up. But if you're working on a deal and you just want to have some questions, feel great. You know, call me up. Tom Eli's called me up before. I answer my phone.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, that's so true. And I don't see Don on here. So Andres, would you close us in a prayer this morning?
Sure.
Thank you.
Dear God and Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to get together today. We thank you for the undeserved blessings that you have given all of us. We thank you for our families. We thank you for the opportunity to be in business. We put ourselves, our families, and our businesses in your hands, and we look forward to hear from you, that we may know exactly what you want us to do. In the Lord, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Bill. And I do love the way you have your name and your phone number. You're the only one on here that has it that way. And how smart is that? I'm going to change mine as soon as we hang up and add my phone number beside my name. That's perfect. Awesome. Thank you
Sure.
so much. Y'all have a great, great weekend. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Get out
again.
and find people to help. Go make some written offers. Talk to
That's
some
right.
sellers. See y'all.
That's right. Thank you. Bye, y'all.